Oh, you can just imagine the look on Fabien Gautier's face. Buried beneath the goggles and stern frown, there's nothing Gautier loves more than a pro de deux fullback. Nothing gets his heart going like a little lad who used to stand 30 yards away from the glorious gallery of rotund second rows punching each other that is that league. And then, the moment he has his little next French plaything from the mid-table tripe vest that is Grenoble lined up, as he watches as they agree a Toulouse contract to make him also his other favourite kind of player, and starts rubbing his hands with Division 2 glee. That very fullback is suddenly, out of nowhere, out there scoring 2 tries on debut for Italy. Saturday saw a match play out almost entirely as expected, with Scotland scoring some stunners on their way to holding out a pretty promising Italian team inspired by 2 tries from that very debutant and Capuzzo. So how did Scotland score their 5 tries, and how big a step forward was Saturday for Italy? There's a phrase Uruguay head coach Esteban Menezes used before the last Rugby World Cup, that his real goal with the team was to make them the protagonists of each match. The aim was for them to be the interesting side for a neutral, not the opposition. And it feels a bit like Italy are slowly trying to adopt a similar mindset. The first 15 minutes felt very much like the Azzurri imposing themselves on Scotland and the game, rather than just withstanding the opposition or trying to get the odd sneak attack in before the game gets away from them, as we felt often in the past. And from that change, they drew 3 points and a fair few bursts of territory, which could or should have been converted into more. It was a hugely encouraging start, and the way it slid away from them was perhaps even more useful in highlighting the 2 things that can make them fall off the intensity right away. Not only did they lose their properly inspirational captain Michele Lamoureux to the blood bin, but they fell behind as Scotland's much superior kicking game demoted them from protagonists to merely NPCs against Gregor Townsend's Player 1. It begins here. With Italy containing Scotland pretty well, Ali Price slides for a lovely kick and puts Italy on the back foot for the first time in the game. However, instead of simply exiting by booting it long, Italy want to remain protagonists, so hang a kick high on halfway to give Pierre Bruno a chance of chasing and regathering the ball. But a superb subtle block by Ali Price means he can't get there, and Scotland play 1 phase before Russell decides to end the CPU's lock on the game. Whilst Padovani can prevent this becoming a 50-22, Russell has still trapped him in a really difficult spot. No angle to do anything interesting, he can only hit it long. It's a reactionary play which Hogg covers easily, and it allows him and Graham to launch a counter-attack. Italy's follow-up chases solid, but by boxing in 2 men, Graham can put Turner up against only Brayley, who he bumps with ease. Ali Price then runs a brilliant support line, but the Italian scramble defence is pretty great. So if this slows down and becomes a phase, if there's a proper ruck, Italy number up and the space gets closed off. Rather than risk that, Price just rolls a loose ball along the ground on purpose to speed it up. Graham feeds Russell then, who lobs it over the top. Now, Sam Johnson prized his try out of Kyle Staines' clawed hands like a... I've written shellfish here. Like a shellfish, sure, let's go with that. Like a shellfish. But it's actually extremely wise. Kyle Staines' line is fine. You know, he's held his width well. But because he doesn't know when, how, where the ball is getting to him, he's in a mixed position. One that could adapt to several passes being made, a wide ball or the cross kick. As such, he won't be going full tilt when he receives it, and Brex can probably beat him to the corner. Johnson instead comes from deeper and times his run to be at top speed once the thing lands in his hands, and it allows him to beat Brex to the corner and cross nicely for a try. He's always been an unselfish player, and weirdly, stealing this score from a teammate is the best decision for the wider 23. Italy have genuinely improved game on game in the Six Nations. Their attack came together in a way we'll get onto, and their defence is really rather sound these days, but their big issue remains that their kicking game is just so far behind the other sides in this year's Six Nations, with this one exception. Every kick Garbisi, Padovani or Brayley made was pretty much swept up by Scotland with ease, failing to find grass or satisfying touch. The majority of Italy's kicking is merely because Scotland kick to them and they feel obliged to kick it back. It's mostly aimless or easily covered, and here we present Russell with a prime opportunity to attack, but for a frankly quite lucky interception by Halafihi. And here, yes, it's a clearance and focus on territory therefore, but this is a pointless nothing kick by Garbisi that gives Hogg so much time to assess the field in front of him and wait for support to gather around him. He beats Capuzzo and then draws 2 men before offloading and allowing Harris to bump Brayley and offload back to Hogg. Russell then takes over after he goes to ground and orchestrates these phases superbly. The threat is never the same 2 phases in a row, and it forces Italy to work very hard. Very quickly, the Azzurri have players filling in rather than adopting their natural positions, and after a big carry by Schumann, draws several defenders to the ruck. Russell spots the space on the inside of Cannone and knows all he has to do is draw the lock out. So he jinks outside Lamoureux and the lock comes in to assist. But Darcy Graham has hit a line hidden from sight and can slide through and go over for a very deserved second try of the tournament. This guy really deserves another try. Here, at least Italy find touch, but it's not deep enough to prevent a quick throw. Now, the cliche, the kick's only as good as the chase, is something we haven't really heard that much in the last couple of years, because generally, the chasing in international rugby has become exceptional, but Italy follow up a, average, maybe 6 out of 10 at best kick, with a below average chase, meaning no Scots are put to ground before the entire front row here can retreat to act as superb blockers, stretching the space Brex alone has to cover. Lamro and able to teleport through them, meaning Ali Price can burst through and link up with Hogg, who goes over to score in the corner of the field. Italy's weak kicking game appears to be something they're aware of, as they keep holding more ball around the halfway mark than any other team, and it makes it incredibly easy for Scotland to defend, knowing some keep ball shit is coming, but without the efficiency of a Joe Schmidt Island, so they could make easy tweaks to their usual defence. Scotland entered the game with a far more aggressive breakdown strategy than usual. The Scots are usually one of the most patient defensive teams in Test rugby. Steve Tandy's system wanting as many men on their feet as possible, and only designated specialists ever competing for the ball at their own discretion. On Saturday, Scotland assaulted almost every ruck in the midfield and opposition half, with players outside the usual kind of Mish, Darge, etc. type culprits attempting to blast the opposition off the ball, not just get over it. Matt Fagerson and number 8 often spends a lot of his time in the backfield, but instead Scotland kept him in the main line basically the entire game, and he caused havoc at the breakdown, not required to cover any kicks. Here, Scotland commit 4 forwards to 1 ruck and almost turn it over. And whilst it creates a momentary overlap, because Italy offer no kicking threat, Graham can just shoot up and shut it down. Ioane chips, Harris harries, and recovers the ball to put Hogg on the counter. There's also some cute work whilst in possession. Fagerson here hammers Lamro away from the ball. This forces Cecileri to come in and fill in for his captain, and hence a hole in his previous position. Nicoretta is too slow to fill, and Price can slide right through. This breakdown work was a simple tweak by Townsend and Tandy that disrupted Italy enormously. It's unusual, but the Azzurri actually looked the most comfortable, the most at home, attacking when in the 22, because once in the danger zone, Scotland defended as usual, knowing they couldn't sacrifice bodies at the breakdown. And therefore Italy knew what they were up against. In the lead up to Ange Capuzzo's first try, Italy play 8 phases, and not once does anyone but the tackler contest for Scotland and just standing off. And it allows Italy to play with greater fluency than they've managed all tournament, not worrying about securing the ball. And Paolo Garbisi uses this chance to really hit a flow. Now, basically the entire Italian attack for over a year has gone through Garbisi. He dictates everything they do, and Tandy will have made his team very aware of this. Here we can see Johnson and Harris just watching him, looking at him and chatting, figuring he's the sole threat. He tells them everything they're doing. Especially, as I highlighted pre-tournament, if ever Italy have an important or difficult pass to throw, Paolo puts it on himself. So, what he does here is kind of low-level genius. Garbisi uses himself as a decoy. BG sits on his shoulder, but he calls Braley to miss him, and it folds the Scotland defence in, leaving them one man short. So he gets in position to make this next pass himself, but points to Brex, calling for the ball to go to him instead so he can throw the pass. Harris has turned in to watch Garbisi, expecting to use the extra seconds the ball would be in the air if the pass is coming from him, not Brex, to get across to Padovani, but instead he has to hurry and hit him without taking note of Capuzzo, who steps brilliantly and finishes so well. It's gorgeous construction that highlights how Garbisi started to develop as an international 10 after a difficult few personal performances. He's maturing and starting to understand the impact he has on a game beyond the touches he has on the ball. And Capuzzo's other try was an even more impressive feat in continuity. If the first goal was a perfectly aimed shot by Garbisi, this was more scattergun, as Italy just threw things that might work at Scotland over and over again until eventually this lovely passage offloading really does work. Up until the last 2 years, Italy have almost always been the team who offload most in the Six Nations because they usually didn't have a competent structured attack to rely on instead, and so just chased chaos. But under Smith and Crowley, that's come right down as they look to use a more organised system, and so this reintroduction of some of those old habits comes across as something of a shock to Scotland and works really nicely. A quick recycle and allowing Fusco to put Capuzzo in position to jink over and score another lovely try. It wasn't a perfect debut for him, but his tries are so well taken, it's hard to not start dreaming of the day Italy go full anti-heft flair as Matteo Minozzi is fit again to partner him. However, it all pales in comparison to the kind of magic Scotland can create when given an opportunity. I've got almost nothing to say about this glorious try by Chris Harris, but there's just some noises I could make instead to express it, though I might have to hide them actually behind a new Patreon tier. And his second try was really simple but a smart call by Finn Russell. After this exceptional piece of refereeing by Luke Pearce, Italy are forced to replace their defensive linchpin Brecht with Marco Zanon. Now, Zanon is a very good player, but he's only been on the pitch mere seconds before he's asked to defend a scrum 5, the most difficult task any centre can be given. So, Russell calls a simple move that just puts as many runs as possible in his eye line. Russell, Johnson, Hogg, Harris and Stein are all at some point potentially Zanon's man, and still finding his feet in the game, he takes a wild punt on Stein, and Hogg can then just put Harris through instead into the hole to cross for the try. It's simple, ruthless rugby by Russell and Scotland, just taking advantage of an acclimatising young centre in front of them, making his first decision the hardest he'll have to make all match. And it's been a pretty hard Six Nations in general for Italy, but there are more and more shoots of hope coming through each week. They now head to Cardiff looking to continue their trend of improving game on game and set up a summer tour against the USA, Canada and Argentina that could be very interesting. Whisper it, could be very interesting. Meanwhile, Scotland will look to take this win on the road to Ireland in search of another, knowing third place in the Six Nations is not beyond them yet, to round out what has been a pretty, overall probably disappointing campaign. It was very much just job done on Saturday with little else to add. Their tries well taken and work at the breakdown and from the boot looking exceptional as always, but I'm struggling to draw much more than the mere satisfaction of a win in the championship here. It might not be leading to the championship title they were chasing after week 1, but they remain a side with a lot of unfulfilled potential that they still feel extremely close to hitting. Let's just hope, for Scotland's sake, next week's game doesn't perhaps go quite as close to how we'd all have predicted. Thank you for watching. Ireland against England will be up tomorrow. I hope all's well with you and your family and that you are having a good rugby. Rugby and bye.
Bye. There's also a cool podcast. There's one going up where we have Ian Hay talking about Scotland against Zimbabwe on Friday.
That's it.
Player of the match, you must be delighted.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dream come true for me.
On aurait sanctionné le coup de